Hey everybody, this is Bolshevism, Roots, Role, Class View, Method. I said that wrong. Bolshevism, Its Roots, Role, Class View, and Methods by Rudolf Sprenger, who's also known as Helmut Wagner. Let me go to German Wikipedia real quick to look up this man. Sorry, it's going to take me a second to look him up. There we are. Helmut R. Wagner. Helmut R. Wagner lived from 1904 to 1989. He was born in Dresden and died in South Dennis, Massachusetts. He was a council communist theorist and later American sociologist of German origin. Helmut Wagner was the son of Rudolf Wagner and Olga Fischer. Wagner attended a technical college from 1919 to 1922 and studied at the Technical University of Dresden from 1922 to 1924. At the end of the 1920s, Wagner was one of the central figures of the left-wing opposition in the Dresden SPD. At the end of 1931, Helmut Wagner was expelled from the SPD because of this activity. At this time, Helmut Wagner was working in the council communist group Red Fighters, for whom he wrote the theses on Bolshevism that are still well known today. From 1925 to 1932, Helmut Wagner worked as a teacher in adult education. In 1934, Helmut Wagner's German citizenship was revoked because of his criticism of the Nazi regime. In exile in Switzerland, Helmut Wagner worked as a technician for the Swiss Army and also studied social sciences. In 1941, Wagner emigrated to the U.S., where he worked as a toolmaker for 10 years. From 1951, he studied sociology at the New School for Social Research, where he received his doctorate in 1955. From 1956 to 1964, Helmut Wagner taught as a professor of sociology at Bucknell University in Pennsylvania. Helmut Wagner went to the Department of Anthropology and Sociology at Hobart and William Smith Colleges, New York, where he headed the department until 1985. Along with Alfred Schutz, Wagner was one of the leading representatives of phenomenological sociology in the USA. His books include Gender and Society from 1928, The Nature of Sexual Love from 1930, Sport and Workers' Sport from 1931, Theses on Bolshevism from 1934, Social and Religious Outlooks of a Young Labor Elite, 1955, The Cultural Sovietization of East Germany, 1975, Types of Sociological Theory, 1963, Husserl and Historicism, 1972, and Phenomenological Sociology, 1973. So, look at that. Okay, so I'm reading this from a book, from a PDF of a book form of this piece, translated by an Integer and released by International Review New York. The contents of the book include a foreword, Bolshevism by Rudolf Sprenger, 1. The Class Triangle of the Russian Revolution. I don't know why I said Bolshevism, but that's the title of the book. Chapter 1, The Class Struggle of the Russian Revolution. Chapter 2, The Bourgeois Revolutionary Movement. Chapter 3, The Political Line of Descent. Chapter 4, Bolshevism and the Worker. Chapter 5, The Leninist Theory of Class Consciousness. Chapter 6, The Proletariat and the Tactics of Bolshevism. This is one of the I think this is kind of like one of like this is one of the major statements on Bolshevism by the Council Communist current. With this pamphlet, the International Review assumes a new form. The International Review is the slogan of a socialist propaganda society. Is the organ of a socialist propaganda society. The International Review works for the abolition of the existing social order featured by private, corporate, and state ownership of the instruments of production and distribution and by the system of wage labor. The International Review works to have the chaos and violence of the existing system replaced nationally and internationally with a simpler and more natural arrangement, that of socialism. Industry can produce today better and faster than ever before. Industry's productivity is increasing in a mounting ratio. Its productivity is increasing so fast that it does not pay to have it produce anywhere near its full capacity. The present masters of industry must hold it back just as a horseman holds back an eager horse. They must dump huge quantities of the best foodstuffs to feed the rats in the Jersey meadows. They must soak with oil and burn Babylonic piles of oranges in California, setting armed guards over the Holocaust to shoot down any child, woman, or man who might dare to snatch some of the fruit out of the stinking fire. They must at the same time assign their social scientists to think up, for the benefit of the increasing, quote, less favored, end quote, section of the population, suggestions on how to transform the pickings from garbage cans into, quote, nourishing food, end quote, food, such as have been sent out to the relief clients in South Pasadena, in the very region where piles of millions of the finest oranges in the world are burned down under the guard of men with rifles. Today it is precisely because industry can produce better and faster than ever before that millions are starving, with or without, quote, relief, end quote, and the nations of the earth are getting ready for the greatest of all world wars. The industrial machine of society has developed to the point where it must produce plenty, but when its various competing portions get on the way to the production of plenty, there follow awful social disasters like the current Great Depression, like the last World War, like the coming depressions, like the coming world wars. That is because today the things we eat, wear, and the services we use for shelter and amusement are produced for sale, for profit. When they are produced when, as much as it pays, they are destroyed so as not to upset the market. When you produce things not for the sale but simply for use, you can't have all this interesting, complicated, plug-ugly economic confusion. When you produce things for use, only your fellows and your own needs, dreams, technical knowledge, and ingenuity, and the world's material resources set the limit to how much and what you produce. Then the more you produce and the more efficient is production. The greater is the number of useful things and services you all have, the more leisure is left for all. There is no reason then for throwing foodstuffs to the rats in the Jersey meadows, and burning millions of oranges while money and talent is spent for detailed sets of, quote, suggestions, end quote, to relief clients on how to live on garbage. There is no fear then of the market being gutted with the threat of plenty. There are no markets. There are no national and international markets to fight over, smashing and burning millions of human beings into the condition of hummus by means of the most ingenious contrivances of technological science. Plenty is then no longer a menace and a calamity. Plenty is then what it naturally should be, a blessing. Then humanity working in international cooperation, is the real master of the social industrial machine of man's productive process. Then the sky is the limit to the natural desire of the race, and the individual to express himself in creation, to excel. The industrial machine of modern society can only function naturally and harmlessly when the instruments of production and distribution, The factories, railroads, mines, giant farms, warehouses, circulation centers, etc., is the common property of society, of the entire population, and is democratically run by society to produce things and services for use and not for sale. It can only function naturally and harmlessly, and produce for use, when the present system of making a living, either by collecting profits or hiring out your body for wages to the galleys of private or state-run capitalism, is replaced with a system of scientifically and democratically organized free labor of the able-bodied population. Under such a setup, you produce the things that the population needs. There can be no other purpose to production. You don't produce to sell to those who have the price. You don't produce to sell to those that have the price and cut down on production when they don't have the price. Under such a setup with no markets and no wage labor, you can really plan production and get both national and international cooperation. Only under such a setup, common ownership, production for use, scientifically and democratically organized free labor instead of wage labor, can you really free yourself from slavery to the many individual bosses of the quote private end quote capitalism and the quote collective end quote associated boss parenthesis representing all the clever persons who hold the power and receive a privileged income end parenthesis of state-run capitalism. Only then is the present lot of the working slob and the quote little man end quote the freedom to starve in quote uncontrolled end quote private capitalism and the convict security offered them by state-run capitalism replaced with real security and real freedom. We can have the change from capitalism to the system of common ownership, production for use under the democratic control of the population, the abolition of wage labor, when many people understand that such a change is the only way out of their troubles. When many people understand what is to be done, they will get together for organized common action. They act in an organized manner to do away with capitalism using the best means that they find at hand. Is it only in the interest of the wage workers of capitalism to have the present system replaced with socialism? The wage workers are the worst sufferers in the system. However, the development of the system, bringing greater concentration and centralization of capital, puts the so-called middle classes in no enviable position. The wages of technical experts of every description fall like all wages with the general development, which reduces the cost of production of specifically trained labor power. College graduates are a drug on the market. Engineers have fallen to the salary rank of mechanics. We are told there are too many doctors for all to make a decent living. Both Hitler and the American chain stores put the wage slaves' overalls on the small businessman. Middle Western farmers, formerly flattered as the quote backbone of the nation end quote, become quote nomad end quote farmers, pitiful farmhands dragging their families over the broad land in quest of a handout. The change from capitalism to socialism is in the interest of the overwhelming majority of the population of our society. The International Review does not expect to have this social transformation come about as the product of a mere educational activity. The great numbers of our society will learn the way to general security with freedom only as a result of bitter experience and repeated disillusionment. They will get there after various frustrated attempts to have the problem of food, clothing, shelter, and personal liberty solved within the framework of the steadily curdling capitalism. They will come to understand under the compulsion of the material facts of overripe capitalism, which defeat the programs of hope and swindle within the system of wage labor that are offered under such names as the New Deal, the Middle Way, clerical corporatism, Italian fascism, German Nazism, Russian Bolshevism, social credit, etc., etc. One second. The change from the capitalist social order, no matter how modified by the economic development of the system and by the social engineering and window dressing of the, quote, radical, unquote, politicians of capitalism, as the Bolsheviks, fascists, Nazis, Phalangists, Catholic corporatists, and the others, to common ownership, to production for use, to the replacement of wage labor with scientifically and democratically organized free labor, will come as a result of the cumulative reaction of the population, all, quote, classes, end quote, excepting the very big guys and their nearest stooges, end parenthesis, to the misery of rapidly changing capitalism, which defeats all attempts to make it behave in an uncapitalist way. What is the role of the socialist propagandist in this situation? He is part of the population of capitalist society. As a propagandist, the socialist propagandist is the expression of the reaction of the population to the pressure of steadily developing capitalism. The socialist propagandist is the voice and mouthpiece of the reaction of the people to the misery of the times. The increased and organized activity of the socialist propagandist is a sign that more people, under the pressure of the material environment and historical experience, are ready to listen to and can understand the message of socialism. When it is easier for socialist propagandists to be heard, there will be more socialist propagandists and propaganda. More people will be talking socialism. In time, people will act for socialism. Understanding, parenthesis, of what is to be done, in parenthesis, becomes a powerful material force when it has laid hold of great numbers. Understanding by great numbers is translated into popular political action. As the voice and gauge of the socialist understanding of the general population, the socialist propagandist must be especially interested in making things clear to himself. An important part of his activity at this moment is to take stock of his ideas, to reevaluate the ways and beliefs current in the labor movement. The labor movement is the section of the population that is supposed to be most conscious of the social reality. The labor movement also echoes and mirrors the illusions and sectional interest that characterize the outlook of the general population at the moment. Politically, the labor movement of today is, in part, a vehicle of pro-capitalist and nationalist causes, in part a museum of ideologies and programs which live on as parasites after surviving the situations which first gave rise to them. An important, possibly the paramount task of the earnest socialist propagandists at this moment is to re-examine the various labor and, quote, radical, end quote, trends in the light of current reality, in the light of the facts of changing capitalism. He must put his finger on what is false and pretentious, on what is venerable but meaningless, on what is harmful and what hinders the spread of socialist understanding. He must recognize and brand as such the fake, the putrid, and dangerous elements parading under all sorts of masquerades in the labor movement today, spreading the sweet of momentarily popular fairy tales. He must make clear to himself and his fellows the nature and significance of Bolshevism, fascism, Nazism, the old international totalitarian collective capitalist that goes under the name of Holy Roman Catholic Church, anti-Semitism, the rule of the big boys in the trade union business, etc., etc. He must do this calmly, soberly, with a vigilant regard for fact, but at the same time fearlessly. That is what we want to do with these pamphlets. Signed Integer Press, or Integer Review? What is it? What was the Integer? Sorry. Yeah, just Integer. This is translated by Integer. I'm trying to see a year for this publication. It says 1930. I'm not sure if that's when it's from or when it was originally written or when it was translated and published in the United States. But either way, all right, here's the actual text, Bolshevism. Let me see how long that recording was, actually.